This will be the audience for our poster presentation.
Hi, my name is Amy and this is Shanae. This poster is our summary of our learning from EDN441. It is based off the question, what kind of HASS teachers do we want to become?
The type of HASS teachers Amy and I endeavour to become are engaged and transformative intellectuals who combine vision, conception and practice to empower students' education through Shaw's values.
Ira Shaw is the pioneer in the field of critical education. His work adapts the ideas of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. In empowering education, Shaw offers a comprehensive theory and a practice for critical pedagogy. As HASS teachers, we want students to be empowered. Although we deem all of Shaw's values important, we have just picked a few to talk about in this speech.
An empowering education is a student-centred program for multicultural democracy in school and society. It approaches individual growth as an active, cooperative and social process because the self and society cannot be made unless people create it together.
Shaw defines participatory as students should be active and involved from the beginning. To be a thinking citizen in democracy, Dewey maintained a person had to take part in making meaning, articulating purposes, carrying out plans and evaluating results. An example of this is when a teacher is teaching the students about Dreamtime stories. They may ask a variety of questions to make sure that the students are active and involved in the learning.
Shaw's democratic value refers to students who make meaning from their experiences and act on it through open communication and mutual governance. Democracy reduces student resistance to learning, working towards an education where students use educational experience to personally develop. For instance, in a Year 6 classroom looking at history, students look at current and previous laws of Indigenous Australians, focusing on citizenship rights of Indigenous Australians, particularly the removal of children. Students look at how this has changed, what it was like for Indigenous Australians and how this is portrayed today.
Problem posing is another vital value to create an empowering education, as it recognises that knowledge is not deposited from one another, but is instead formulated through dialogue. An example of problem posing teaching would be if a teacher was to give a lecture on the Indigenous history for 20 minutes and was just to stand there and talk for 20 minutes. This would not be an example of problem posing. However, if the teacher started a class discussion on Indigenous history, then this would be a problem posing approach.
Shaw's activism value discusses the behaviour and practices in the school environment, incorporating social justice, ecological sustainability and democratic processes. We believe activism is essential to empowering education as it creates students as agents of social change, becoming transformative individuals and valuable community members. For instance, students can interview working people in a variety of key personnel jobs, such as the police force, to discover roles and responsibilities.
Interdisciplinary is another one of Shaw's values. It crosses the boundaries of academic disciplines. For example, when a teacher is teaching the factors that influence purchase decisions, the teacher might incorporate surveys to get this data and then graphs for the students to represent this data. So this crosses the boundaries of mathematics and HASS.
The principles, values and assumptions that both Amy and I want to embed into our teaching include authentic, play-based, student-centred, inquiry-based, collaborative learning and reflective teaching.
Authentic teaching is about connecting learning to real-world situations. For example, when students learn about the differences in family sizes, structures and rules today and how these have changed, the students' families might come into the classroom and then they will look at the changes from Indigenous families to families from today. Authentic teaching should be student-centred. Students present, and this should be done by students can present their findings in the way that they want to. For example, there might be an ESL learner in the classroom and they might prefer to do a poster with a lot of visual images instead of having to give a speech.
Inquiry-based learning is facilitated by an educator for students to look at real-world, authentic scenarios, collaborating using inquiry skills rather than the educator feeding students with information. When students look at real-world scenarios and use inquiry-based skills, they are able to grasp a deeper understanding of the topic as they develop critical thinking skills. For example, in Year 4, students learn about the differences between rules and laws. Here, students use inquiry-based learning skills looking at real-world examples around the school. For example, laws such as speeding in school zones and rules such as wearing a hat at lunchtime. Students can actively participate to question, investigate and research this topic.
Collaborative involves groups of students working together to solve a problem, complete a task, or create a product. Collaborative learning is important because it develops high-level thinking, builds self-esteem, develops oral communication and social skills. An example of collaborative teaching and learning might be that students have to learn about the difference between needs and wants. This might be done where the teacher gives various information, booklets, websites, videos to the students, and each student looks at each text and then they come back as a jigsaw activity and explain what they have learnt from that text.
Reflective practice is a collaborative approach educators can use to improve their teaching and to benefit student learning. Here, educators should think critically of their teaching, what could be done better and what worked well. Educators should constantly use reflective practice strategies to improve the delivery and outcome of their lessons and better student learning. Educators can implement the CRP model where they describe, inform, confront and reconstruct their teaching style. Educators can ask themselves questions such as, what do I consider important pedagogically, and where do my ideas come from? To conclude, the answer to the question of what type of HAS teachers Amy and I want to be are empowering HAS teachers. Are there any questions?
Yes. I noticed you found reflective teaching to be an integral part of your pedagogy. Do you think educators have time?
Yes, I believe this is essential to our teaching. Not only can we improve the delivery of our lessons, we can improve students' learning as we reflect on what worked and what didn't work. Are there any more questions?
How can you incorporate music into HAS?
That's a great question. So when students learn about Indigenous music instruments, the teacher might bring in the musical instrument of the didgeridoo. You can have a quick listen now. So the teacher might bring in this musical instrument and start to play it and even get the students involved with playing it as well. This way the students learn about music and rhythms and beats and all those things, whilst also learning about the Indigenous culture. This is a great way to cross the academic disciplines of music and history.
And why have you used the themes and examples of Indigenous culture?
So, first of all, Indigenous culture and history is extremely important for students to learn. The reason for this is because we can learn from our past, and if the students aren't getting the information that they need about history, even though it might be a bit brutal, then they won't be able to learn from it. They can also, part of creating an empowering education is that students become agents of social change. So they can change what happened in the past, but learn what happened from the past and then come back to now and create agents of social change.
Additionally, this is also a general capability. We as educators are required to incorporate this into our teaching throughout all subjects, ensuring that all students become learners and active and informed citizens, which is part of the Melbourne Declaration.
Thank you
for listening.